come to the bold analysis. President Ruto jetted silently in the country. After attending the United Nations General Assembly at Atlanta in America, snubbing a planned meeting by diaspora community, despite of the mobilization that had been done. Of course, his visit in America coming a month after Rigathi Gachagwa's inroads there, it was in this opportunity probably to try to put his case to Kenyans living in the US. And in this podcast exclusively, we delve into a voter suppression scheme that is at the center of a critical security rank meeting that the president chaired. And we will get into this. But before we delve much into this, once more, I am back to you guys. That I rally you to partner with us, to support us, put up a house for mother of three, Mary Nyambura. Mary Nyambura left the country to go and work in Saudi Arabia. But out of bad luck, she actually got a toxic boss. She was thrown from the third floor of the building they used to live, broke her spinal cord, and came back in the country in the wheelchair. The mother of three really is going through troubles because when she came back, the husband disowned her, that probably she could not continue associating with a person who is disabled. Such a bad fate. And since then, her life changed, that she depends on well-wishers to fund her daily needs. But while she was working in Saudi, she managed to buy a piece of land here in Egerton, where now we opted that when her case was brought to us, to help her put up a house that will be a decent house for her and the three children, so that her life would take a positive turn. And I want to say thank you very much, because I have asked you that we come together for this. We've come together in a big way. And I want to continue saying thank you very much, for I know I might not respond to it through the messages, but for your 10 bob, for your 5 bob, for whatever you've done. In this podcast huwa tunasema kidogo kidogo hujaza kibaba. And we know, like we have done it in other places, like we've done it before, we will soldier on and we will do it. The deficit, like at me, what we had now, like when we did the previous video, I told you that we needed 90,000 to do the roofing. And out of that, I have a deficit of 55,000. And as I said, if we can be able to mobilize for better part of Sunday, on Monday, we should only be focusing on the windows, and then we do the plastering. On Tuesday, I should be out of your way. Then I leave David with the rest of the fundis to do the work, so that when you come back, we'll just come back for the last mile and hand over the house. And so thank you very much, guys. Kindly, you can support in whatever way. Even if you stay around this place, utataka unipatie mabati, I need 45 mabatis. Yes, 45 mabatis. I need mbao. I was still around 800 feet. Hata kama uko na mbao unaweza kutupatia tukate, tusaidie for the roofing, will be available for that. Even if you can offer Smith, you come from this place and you operate maybe a hardware here and you want to give hata msumari, itakuwa sawa. You can still reach out na tutashukuru. I'm really planning that by this next week, before the end of next week, we should really advance so that we start finishing the following week. And thank you very much for standing with this work, because we do it for glory of the Lord.
Second born na heo mutari ko tafadhali mundeithie gwaka na Ngai nĩako mũrathima. Yes, now.
IEBC is supposed to roll out mass voter registration on starting 29th of September, this Monday. This is an extraordinary countrywide exercise that is targeting to inject 6.3 million voters in the voters register. And in this podcast, I should first tell you that if you're a Kenyan and you've been revolting and you've been following the political discussion in the country, here is the moment to make the bold step and register as a voter. From 29th for the whole month in this podcast, I will continue to remind you before in any video that I do that go there and register as a voter. We agreed that coming the next general election, the revolt we shall come from online protest, we shall come from street protest and take our voices through the ballot. And that is why you need to go and register. But this is the gist of this analysis. In the view of injecting 6 new unregistered voters, that majority of these, according to the president's intel, would actually constitute first-time new voters who had been revolting in the streets against Kenya Kwanza regime. And that is what then comes up as I want to demonstrate to you high-profile vote suppression that is emerging at the center of the president's urgency to make sure that 2027 general election is really under state control. A critical security intel team is held to navigate this new critical phase that may define the architecture of the next general election. And let me just throw something in the spanner here. The last general election, the turnout, according to IBC, of course, there have been the politics of the voters register, but according to that IBC register that was used, we had around 20 million voters. But those who voted are in the tune of around 13 million. We had around 22 million, but only 13 million now. So it means we have probably around 8 million people who did not vote. And in the next general election, if there is something that the state is pushing is voter apathy, so that they take the loyal party loyalists and those who patronize individuals to the ballot. The new voters, the new young voters that would actually get to that register for the first time are the ones that can easily convert their anger against regime by taking that ballot, by taking that protest to the ballot to pick your preferred candidate. And that is why I was happy that in Mombasa, David Maraga decided and said he met some group of some young people, and those young people were demanding some stipend, some money. And he said he's not going to give money, and he refused. And that is the new politics, because if we go that direction, we are not going to make any step. What is at the center of this vote suppression is, number one, a political diversionary tactic. And I want to tell you something here. Do you remember the president's speech yesterday, where he mentioned about how he actually took on President William Ruto on using untried and untested schemes on the people while people are suffering. And he mentioned something about Linda Mama. Now, there are some mistakes that William Ruto did, and he must own up. I think it's also right as a leader to accept there are some missteps. Under President Ruto, under President Mwai Kibaki brought Linda Jamii. Linda Jamii was the social protection money, and actually it was brought in the Kibaki too. This is during the Grand Coalition government between Mwai Kibaki and Raila Odinga, which was the money, the cash transfer going to the old and the elderly in the community. He started Linda Jamii. Now, when Uhuru Kenyatta came, and this was actually piloted under the Beyond Zero scheme, the Beyond Zero campaign by Margaret Kenyatta, there was Linda Mama. Linda Mama offered maternity services, prenatal and postnatal and maternity services to our mothers free of charge. It had its own fair of challenges, but it was a bit more advanced. Now, and again in high school, in 2003, when Mwai Kibaki came to power, Mwai Kibaki introduced something called Edu Afya. Edu Afya, there was money that was being taken to schools, and a school was to pick one hospital yenye inatibu watoto wa shule, alafu serikali inalipa. Now, when William Ruto came, William Ruto scratched Edu Afya. He scrapped Edu Afya. He scrapped the other Linda Mama. And in Edu Afya was saying, and he had a very good reason, that hizo shule zina fake some of those medications that are not happening now. Fictitious claims. If that was the issue, instead of scrapping it, what was the alternative? It was just to make sure you put bottlenecks and you put systems that would not allow schools maybe to have fictitious claims, even if you mainstream him through the SHA. But it was removed completely. Now, these are the things that Uhuru Kenyatta was saying. Now, you will understand that is now being mainstreamed as the main agenda of the moment. Kenya Kwanza leaders are holding public rallies every day, but you will not hear anything in their speeches. No messaging pushing on Kenyans to go and register. Instead, it is the anti-Uhuru rhetoric that is taking the major part of their speeches. And I listened to Kithure Kindiki talking about Linda Jamii. I don't know which one of this Linda Jamii. Kenyans are asking Kithure Kindiki about it.
Tuko na program ya kujiandikisha kwa bima ya afya. Na already Wakenya milioni 26.5 wamejiandikisha. 26.5 million Kenyans are registered. Na hapa Garissa registration iko chini, muongeze, because out of 905,000 residents of Garissa County, only 195,000 have registered. 20% only. Muongeze kujisajili. Na mimi nataka kuungana na wale wameongea hapa ya kwamba hii serikali ya William Ruto imejaribu jameni. Wale wanaikosoa waikosoe, lakini wakuwe na ukweli, wasiseme mambo ya uongo, kwa sababu hiyo Linda Mama ambaye ilikuwa inachunga mambo ya wamama wajawazito, sasa tumeipanua kupitia SHA. Sio Linda Mama pekee, inalinda mama, inalinda mzee, inalinda kijana, inalinda mtoto. Tunaita Linda Jamii, sio Linda Mama peke yake, kwa sababu hata ukilinda mama peke yake na uache vijana, uache wazee, uache watoto, hiyo sio sawa. Kwa hivyo wale wanakosoa, wakosoe kimakusudi, lakini wakosoe vile vile kupitia ukweli, sio kupitia uongo. Na vile wenzangu wamesema, Rais Ruto alikuta mbolea ikiwa inauzwa shilingi 6,500, sasa ni 2,500. Hiyo ni ukweli wa mambo. Vile vile Rais Ruto alikuta shilingi ya Kenya haina nguvu. Dola moja ilikuwa inagharimu shilingi 165, ameiteremusha, shilingi ya Kenya iko na nguvu. Sasa dola moja ya Kenya ni shilingi 128. Na ndio tunasema, kwa sababu Rais Ruto anaendelea kukuza uchumi, kuimarisha uchumi, kuimarisha afya, kuongeza stima, kujenga barabara za lami, kujenga masoko, kujenga daraja, kujenga manyumba. Tunasema yeye ni rais wa 2 term. Ni 2 term, si 2 term. Ni 2 term, si 2 term. Basi wacha tukamilishe sasa kwa kusema hivi. Si tumekuja empowerment? Si hao wengine wamechanga? Mungetaka hata rais wetu achange kwa hii hafla? Niseme nisiseme?
Now, while Wanjiku is being engaged in Uhuru Ruto recontest, The principal objective of this is to divert the attention, to divert your attention from the exercise of going to register as a voter. What Uhuru Kenyatta was reminding you is you need to compare what he did with what is now and make up a conscious decision. And Uhuru was charging the young people to come out in their numbers. There are reports of planned protest against Uhuru Kenyatta's statements next week, probably to solidify the two-term voices around Ruto's re-election. Any sort of a protest that is being planned here, that protest is being planned by pro-government side to try to voice their support for President Ruto, is simply part of that diversionary tactic. And this is why the president is very wary to make sure that these 6 million new voters in that register do not make their way there. Uhuru is not in the 2027 contest. The state is silencing the voices that really matter in terms of this. And this is a wake-up call to opposition that, yes, you've said one term. Yes, you've said the principal objective is to remove Ruto in power 2027. That is not going to be done in the closed door meetings. That is not going to be done in the media interviews and panel discussions. That is going to be done with intentional, objective, and well choreographed strategy to ensure that the voters that are enraged around regime, the 6 million young people that are out here holding their IDs and they're not registered voters, those 6 million people get to that register. The gap between William Ruto and Raila Odinga was 200,000. If you can add 6 million, I can tell you, if the new voter who is going to register, there is nothing new in Kenya Kwanza to inspire someone to register. An inspiration is I register, probably to remove him. So make sure you take up that campaign. The second other observation I've made is this. IEBC is, despite of it receiving billions of taxpayers' money from Treasury to conduct this national voter registration, I have not seen them activating their social media or probably even running a social media campaign that is targeting to mainstream, that is targeting this exercise, or even mainstream media mentions to encourage this exercise. In fact, just go and check Facebook page at IBC. That Facebook page is very dormant. The social media activity is being suppressed because the new voter who is targeted is in Twitter, in Facebook, in TikTok, in YouTube, and in Instagram. That is where that voter is. And that voter is targeted. So you must be very intentional and you must put your act right if you want to make sure that you do it. Government, you'll understand, government leaders and politicians who were supposed to push the registration drive are all quiet except Kirinyaga governor. Out of this, in this country, there is only one leader, and that is Kirinyaga governor. I've even seen Tawe guy. I've seen Natembea. He was being crowned as lawyer kingpin somewhere. I don't know, what is this hula baloo about people to be crowned kingpins and king what? Without really, at this point, what Natembea should be focusing on is how to register voters. He's not shouting Tawe on top of cars. Rigathi must tailor-made one term. The one-term messaging must be accompanied by register, probably to be one vote, one term. Ama tuanze hiyo campaign. Tufanye hiyo one vote, one term. Because I saw the Tawe guy. The Tawe guy is on top of the guy talking about Tawe. as if that is going to change things. Only Waiguru is the only person talking about that registration. That's why this podcast came at the right time. Political profiling of the population. UDA and ODM are painting regions with their orange and yellow colors. You know, I saw those meetings where people are being put, you can see this is Mbere, watu wamevaa yellow. ODM yesterday was in Kisii. All that with all that hula baloo that is being brought together. While even at this point, the leaders should be demanding, should be putting pressure on the Ministry of Interior to make sure that IDs that are idling in Nairobi are taken to those villages. And people told to go and pick their IDs, and immediately they pick their IDs, they walk straight to the constituency office. A desk should be set up in all those constituency offices so that people go to register. When we are taking relief food to the people, we reach anywhere. When we are campaigning, we can reach to the downest, to the remotest villages. But when it is time to tell the person to register, we've called our tails. We are talking about rhetoric. And that is why I'm warning opposition that you must make sure you bring in the new voters. Why am I saying that the opposition must counter this suppression? Because President Ruto is determined much on this. The government is afraid of young voters. And because of that, they are targeting vulnerable voters with millions of shillings, wowing them with the millions to buy patronage. When you listen to Kindiki talking about what they're doing, he's only talking about how much money. And then I saw the fundraisers, I think how they're dishing money. You see, I want you to imagine people being taken, the remotest of these villages going to status, and each person is given 10,000. You know, the other day there was a by-election in Kasipul. Ajombuta lined up people. Walipanga line almost 2 kilometers, people lining to collect 100 shillings, only for that candidate to get 300 votes in that nomination, ODM nomination, to tell you that probably hiyo pesa hata ita convert watu. Hii pesa haita convert watu. But these are the strategy. They are putting people and they're profiling because they don't, wanataka wale wa mama, sababu wale watawapatia pesa wadanganye. The young voters, they don't want to inject new voters in the register because the new voters are a bit informed. And the other issue is this: the political violence meted on political opponents might actually scare away voters. So they must really be vigilant on encouraging the voter. There seems to be a lot of fatigue. And I can tell you, the fact that things are not working is playing to the advantage of Kenya Kwanza. Kenya Kwanza are only interested on making sure they retain power at whatever cost. So if people will feel fatigued that serikali hajawasaidia and it brings in voter apathy, those are some of the things they do. And in fact, opposition must make sure that the people that go register go and vote. Because voter apathy will be an opportunity for people to massage their fingers. Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast has come at the right time. It is time to go and register as a voter. Thank you very much, and kindly support us. Do the Mary appeal. Tunamalizia, I wish when I come back to you guys, I should come back only talking about the windows, so that from the windows, we mobilize for plaster, which I will really need. I will talk to David, who's in charge, to give us what is needed for plaster and also the windows. On Tuesday, I should be able to close this fundraiser. Kama nimeweka material zote chini, I go back to Nairobi, I leave the team to do the work. Wakimaliza, we will come back and actually hand over the house. Thank you.